That door needs to close first.
Hello and welcome to today's Aquarium at Home live stream. As you can probably guess, we are in Lemur Forest. This is our lemur exhibit here in the Ocean Journey building in the Tropical Cove. And today, leading today's live stream, is Maggie Sipe. Maggie, what is your job at the aquarium?
So my job title is Animal Care Specialist too. But I am the lead caretaker here of our lemurs. So we have many people help work on this team, but this is my primary goal, is taking care of these guys, making sure that they get the best care that lemurs can get.
All right, Melanie King, who I think we all know, another fellow aquarium employee, says, "Hey Maggie, no better company for lunch today." As we said in the description, those of you who are watching, hopefully even more of you will be joining us here momentarily, please ask questions. It doesn't matter what that question is. It could be about lemurs. It could honestly be about just about anything. But lemurs would obviously be preferable since that is Maggie's particular specialization. But do type them down in the comments. I'll pass them on as they come in. And we'll just launch right in with the first question, which came in from Callie Copeland, who asked, how many different species of lemurs are there?
That is an amazing question. There are actually over 100 different species of lemurs. So here at the aquarium, we currently have 2 different species for you guys that you could see on any given day with you when we're open. Ringtail lemurs are kind of the most iconic lemurs. That's what most people think of. But actually in Madagascar, a lot of lemurs are small and brown. That's more of a generalized lemur species. And they can range in size from about the size of your pinky to about 2 to 3 feet in height with the injury lemur. So it is really impressive. Today what we're going to do is we're going to showcase a natural behavior for these guys. And I've got my coworker Sam, who is one of the other lemur caretakers here, is bringing in some forsythia. So the forsythia, if you have some in your yard, you might have noticed, has been blooming with these bright yellow flowers. And our lemurs actually love to eat these flowers. In the wild, they would eat a lot of vegetation, flowers, a lot of leaves, things like that. And one of their main diet items is actually tamarind, which we do grow a little bit here with the help of our horticulture staff. They like to grow those things for us, and our horticulture staff actually cut this forsythia and brought it in for us today for our lemurs to enjoy. You can see how much they like it. They gobble it up pretty quick, which is why we waited to bring it in, so that you guys could actually get a chance to see it all before it just disappears.
So this is locally sourced forsythia then?
This is locally sourced. So we actually get browse from our horticulture's property. Our curator's property is an approved site. We do have to approve the site, make sure no pesticides are used. And then we actually can give them several different types of things. Their favorite is forsythia flowers, but they do eat the forsythia leaves as well. They can also eat some kinds of maple and some kinds of sumac, other certain things, but it is very tricky. So we rely heavily on our horticulturist and our vet to make sure that we're always feeding something that is completely safe for our lemurs to eat.
Some of you may notice the man in the background. That is Todd Staley. He is the aquarium's photographer. And Todd, why don't you wave for the people? All right, so we do have some questions coming in. Forgive the buzzing on the camera. If I let go and I touch the screen, my stabilizer is going to make everything look like you're inside of a washing machine, so bear with me. We do have some great questions coming in, though. Let's see. Fort Allegro would like to know, what are their names?
That is a really good question. So we have 5 ringtail boys out here. So these 2 right here. Up here we have Twix and Gil, and then we have Skip.
So Twix and Gil.
Twix and Gil up there. And then we have Skip and Yoda, and then Rolo is hanging out over here on the ground eating his own branch, kind of nice and peaceful like.
All right, so Kristen Cadwell, who I think we also know, another fellow aquarium employee watching, I hope from home, wanted to know who we're with, and she wants to say that she misses us.
We
miss
her
you too. All right, so Claire, H2, Ashley King Jones, King Jaros, who I may have, if I butcher names, forgive me. It's hard to do this and worry about pronunciation, but would like to know on behalf of Claire, age 2, how old are the lemurs and how long do they normally live?
Very good question as well. So this group of 5 boys, we actually have Gil and Skip are twins, and they are all, they just turned 5 a couple of weeks ago. So we actually celebrated their birthdays a couple of weeks ago. So they all turned 5, and Twix is 6. So Twix is our oldest male in this group. Lemurs in the wild could live anywhere, their mid to late teens is about a natural life expectancy in the wild, but actually here in our care, they could live to almost 30. So there are cases of lemurs almost doubling their lifespan in our care, which is really just a great example of how much good work we do here at zoos and aquariums.
So why would that be? Why would life expectancy be so much longer in human care than out in the wild?
Well, for one, we watch what they eat. Lemurs in the wild can eat as much fruit as they can find. Sometimes food can be scarce for them, so that can be something that kind of knocks some time off their life expectancy. Their group dynamics sometimes too, as they get older and show a little bit more weakness or trouble moving, group members might kick them out, and then when they're on their own, they don't do well. We also have an excellent vet care team here that provides the best vet care possible, and we do routine checkups on all of our animals. So they really have just the best care possible, and I know that like if I had someone watching what I ate every day, I would probably be a lot healthier too.
So it's kind of like having your own personal physician and personal trainer.
Yep, we have personal trainers, we give them enrichment to keep their bodies active, we make sure they have the best proper nutrition that they can get so they don't get any diseases like diabetes, which these guys are prone to. And yeah, anytime there's anything slightly wrong, that healthcare is free for them, so they get whatever they need.
All right, now Nicole McGowan is asking on behalf of Kyra, age 9, and boy, this is going to open a can of worms. Are lemurs endangered?
Lemurs are all endangered. So I mentioned earlier there's over 100 different species of lemurs, and all of those are endangered. So most of them are critically endangered. So they can only be found living on the small island of Madagascar off the coast of Africa. So it's a very small place for that many different species to inhabit. And because of that, because Madagascar is such a poor country, deforestation is a huge problem. And so it actually leads to the fact that lemurs are losing a lot of their home space. So it makes it really hard for them to rebound even in numbers because they're just losing habitat at such an alarming rate.
So one of the ways that we can probably talk about ways you can help lemurs, and one of the ways you can help lemurs is really just by not having one.
Not having a lemur is the best thing you can do for lemurs. It is technically legal in some states for lemurs to be pets, but that doesn't mean it's okay. Lemurs make terrible pets. Oftentimes they're kept as alone. They're not with other lemurs. Lemurs are very social animals. They need other lemurs to be healthy. They also are very messy. They take very specialized diets. Earlier I talked about how important their nutrition is and how it leads to longer lives for them. But if they get the bad nutrition, if they get like wrong nutrition, it can really be detrimental to their health. They are very prone to diabetes, so that is something we watch very closely here. So yeah, just please do not have a lemur. And one of the best ways to help lemurs in the wild is also just support the Tennessee Aquarium. We are managing partners of the Madagascar Fauna and Flora Group, so we're very proud that we do a lot of work supporting the conservation efforts that are happening on the ground in Madagascar every day.
All right, so Megan Garrett was asking, can you talk about how you help with conservation efforts through partnerships? And you kind of touched on that, but if there's anything to add to that.
So really, one of the best ways that the partnership we work with, Madagascar Fauna and Flora Group, they actually support the people. So the people in Madagascar are poor, they don't have a lot of resources, so they turn to these poor practices of slash and burn agriculture, which means they burn the forest to have fresh land to grow their food, whereas we can teach them healthier ways of doing that with the soil that's already there, regenerating the soil, more sustainable practices so they don't have to cut the forest as much. And programs like that are actually what's really saving lemurs. So the more you can help the people, the more then the people can then care and want to help the lemurs as well.
So we like to say that this is an effort that literally starts from the ground up.
Yes, it starts from the ground up. I mean, it works with one of the biggest programs they do is they started a Saturday school for the students and offer the students lunch on Saturdays. And then because of that, a lot of the local families have been so willing to learn about lemurs and actually do things to help conserve them thanks to that program.
All right, so for those of you who are joining us late, first of all, welcome. And if you're wondering why our lemurs are eating bare branches, those branches were not bare very short time ago, those are forsythia. And as if you go back in the stream, you can hear a little bit more from Maggie about why they're eating the forsythia. But just so if you're wondering, if you joined us late, that is what's going on. Please do keep those questions coming in. We're going to try and get to all of them as quickly as we can. Hello to everybody who's saying hello from various parts of the world. It looks like Alabama is pretty well represented. Callie Copeland asks, how far can they jump?
That is also a very good question. So actually, lemurs are very impressive gymnasts. They're built for leaping through the trees, making it look effortless. Of course, we all think of leaping lemurs. These guys in particular can leap up to about 6 feet in height from a sitting position, which is really, really impressive.
So if you figure that, how tall are they?
I mean, I think they're probably like 1.5 feet, maybe 1 foot tall. If they stretch out, maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet. I'm not quite sure about it, that kind of mass.
So about 4 times their height, essentially.
Yes, they can jump really high, and they just make it look so easy.
So imagine if you could jump about 20 feet in the air. That's about the equivalent of what these guys can do. And we have talked about the fact that we are looking at ringtails today, ringtailed lemurs, but we do actually have other lemurs at the aquarium. So can you talk a little bit about the ones that you can't really see them? They're unfortunately on the other side of the exhibit, but who else do we have here?
So we have a couple of red ruff lemurs. So one boy and one girl. Our girl lemur, Josephine, we call her our queen of Lemur Forest. So she's actually turning 19 this May, which is like really impressive, but she's very healthy. She shows no signs of stopping. She is our queen because she's our only female, and lemurs are a female-dominated society mostly. So she kind of gets whatever she wants since she's our only girl here, really. The reason we didn't let them have access to these guys today is because these guys wouldn't have had a chance at those flowers if she was here. She would get them all for herself and nobody else would be allowed to have any. So we have to kind of regulate that and make sure she doesn't boss them into letting her have all of the good food and all of the fun. So, but they are really beautiful as well. They have a bright red coat and they're found more in the rainforests of northern Madagascar.
Okay. So before I ask the next question, we should probably talk about the fact that lemur was eating what looks like a Duplo block.
Yes.
So can we talk a little bit about, if you're wondering why there are other objects in the exhibit, Maggie can explain.
These actually are your common mega blocks for toddlers. We get these and we use them for enrichment. Sometimes we hide food in the holes in here when we put the bricks together, and then they have to pull them apart to find the food. Today we kind of put lettuce in it like it was like a little planter, so they had to pull the lettuce out. And they were kind of annoyed the fact that there was this thing attached to their leafy green lettuce, but it is enrichment. So we do enrichment 2 times a day, sometimes more than that. Anything we can do just to make their day-to-day different, kind of keeps their bodies moving and their brains active. So this is like a version of a puzzle feeder. We do other things like common Easter eggs as well. We like to put food in there and then they have to use their teeth to crack them open, much like they would crack open a seed pod out in the wild. So we like to elicit those natural behaviors that lemurs would exhibit.
Well, and all of you who are watching right now are witnessing enrichment. You are, by watching it, you're watching them eat, which is enrichment, but also just by this camera being in here, that also is enrichment.
That is enriching. They are very much like, why are you in here? Before we brought in the flowers, they were all very confused. They were like, well, this is no fun for us, but it's a little worrisome. And then once the flowers came out, they were more than willing to participate.
Going to try and get to some more of these questions here. Callie Copeland would like to know how, no, we already asked that one. That's how far they can jump. Sorry about that. Landon, age 11, wants to know what species group the lemurs are in. And guesses rodents, but...
No, that's a very good question as well. Lemurs are primates, and so are we. But lemurs are kind of way down here on the primate tree, all the way down at the ground, and then humans are kind of the top tier, right? So in between you have monkeys and apes, so we're in that same group, but they are their own thing. So lemurs are in a group called prosimians, so they are very different from monkeys and apes. And one of the easiest ways to kind of tell that these guys are lemurs is they can't use their tails for grabbing onto things like you think of a monkey doing. So they are different from monkeys in that sense. They don't have prehensile tails. Those tails are simply for things like communication and balance, not so much for grabbing onto things.
All right. And then also, is wet noses, is that another?
That is definitely a sign of a prosimian. Prosimians are wet-nosed primates, essentially. So just like your dog or cat has a wet nose, lemurs also have wet noses. So those wet noses give them a really great sense of smell, just like dogs and cats. And thanks to that, they actually do use scent as a communication tool. So if you actually can see on Skipper there, his scent gland. So that little black bald spot on the inside of his wrist is a scent gland that they use to mark their territory on trees, rocks, branches. If you ever notice them sniffing something and then looking like they're kind of evil about it, and they might and then they start to rub their wrists on things, that's what they're doing. They're scent marking. And it's also really important for other communication things that they do as well.
All right, Trillium H5 would like to know, how long are lemurs' tails, since we're talking about tails?
How long are their tails? It depends on the species. 2 to 3 feet. Some lemur species don't really have much of a tail. The injury lemur does not. Fun fact about ringtails, though, is they about have 13 rings of each color on their tail. So that's pretty cool fact.
All right, let's see. So moving on down the line, Aggie Stevenson, who we also know. Sarah H5 wants to know, what is their favorite food?
What is their favorite food? Well, most often you'll see them crunching on lettuce. So nice, fresh, crisp romaine lettuce is one of their favorites. But if they have their way, they probably get to eat bananas and grapes all day, every day. But again, they can be pretty prone to diabetes, so we have to limit that. So that is just for special treats. They get a little bit of fruit every day that we use for maybe some training opportunities or enrichment.
And the sugar content of vegetation here is different than it is in Madagascar, right?
It actually is, and that is something that's surprising to people. So wild lemurs do eat a high portion of their diet is fruit, but here, our fruit that we grow in America and we get in our grocery stores is way higher in sugar than naturally occurring fruit in Madagascar. So their fruit is actually closer in sugar content to our veggies. So that is why we feed a lot of veggies to these guys. They get things like zucchini, broccoli, carrots, corn, peppers, all kinds of stuff that we switch it up for them every day. Green beans and peas, those are really good for these guys. But that way that they're not getting too much sugar with our fruit.
All right. Ashley King, Jaros, I wish I could pronounce it correctly, I'm sorry. Do lemurs have any natural predators in the wild, she'd like to know?
In the wild, there is an animal called the husa, which is part of the weasel family. That is technically one of their predators. But it's not quite really a big threat to these guys for endangerment or anything. Really, humans are the biggest predators of lemurs.
And we've, those of you who are watching, many of you probably are parents at home with kids. If you're not just taking a break to try and relax by watching animals, if this is also your science hour, if you have any questions that are science related that maybe Maggie can help with, obviously type those down in the comments, I'll pass them on as well. But good science vocabulary. The word endemic, I think you may have used that one at some point in this live stream. Can you talk about what endemism is?
So endemic species are species that are naturally found in an area, and I'll use biodiversity hotspot as well for Madagascar. So Madagascar is an amazing place where a lot of species are those endemic species. So there are many species on Madagascar that you can only find in Madagascar. So it really is important to try and conserve that, because there are so many different species that can only be found there, and all lemurs are in that group. So they are an endemic species of Madagascar.
So Natalie Crane is asking on behalf of Ashton, age 9, and I've never thought to ask this myself, but I think I probably know the answer. Do you give them a bath?
No, we never give our lemurs a bath. They actually are very well equipped to do that themselves. These guys kind of hate water, to be honest. They are equipped kind of like you think of a cat grooming itself. So actually, if you come around here, there's a good example. Gil is doing it right there on one of his brothers. Well, now he's looking at me like, what's going on? But they do groom each other and themselves. Social grooming is big for these guys. So it's a big way on how they bond as a group. They actually have all of their bottom teeth are specialized and fused into what is called a grooming comb, so a tooth comb. And so their bottom teeth look really weird. And then they have a secondary tongue underneath their tongue that helps clean out that tooth comb. So really, this is one of my favorite facts about lemurs, is that they can clean themselves like that. And they do have an extra long nail on one of their feet as well that usually helps them pick out stuff from their fur that can be really hard to get to. It's happening up there now too. So that social grooming is important for them.
All right, so it's social grooming. Mariah Russell says, "Hi Maggie, great job, way to educate." So
Thank you, Mariah, I miss you. She's from my last institution.
All right. Aaron Elise McCain would like to know on behalf of August Age 8, what are the lemurs' names and ages? We've already covered that. If you can go through it really quick about who's out here right now.
We got Yoda right here, and who is half brothers with Skip and Gil, who are sitting up on that branch. So Skip and Gil are twins, actually. And then we've got Twix and Rolo. So Twix is over here, and then Rolo's on the other side of the tree. These are 5 young boys, and they're very energetic, and people always love to watch them bounce around. They're really fun.
Right. So we're seeing, I don't know, are we looking at sun worshipping here?
Not quite.
Not quite. So can we talk about what sun worshipping is? Sun
worshipping is probably one of the cutest things a lemur does, and what they're known for. It kind of looks like a yoga pose where they sit their legs out, like cobbler's pose almost, and then they kind of set their arms out like this, so that white belly of theirs soaks up all the sun, and you'll see them close their eyes, and you've never seen a lemur look more at peace than when they're sun worshiping. And then our red ruff lemurs do it as well. It just looks a little different. They just kind of flop on their backs and then let their bellies soak up all the warm sun. They're probably not going to do it right now because it is almost 90 degrees in this exhibit today, so it's very hot, and that's not usually when they feel like they need to warm up with the sun.
Yeah, if anybody looks sweaty, that's probably why. All right, so Dustin Whitaker would like to know, where do your lemurs come from? Are they rescued?
So these guys actually all came from other zoos and aquariums. So Gil, Skip, and Yoda all came from, I think, Nebraska. Lincoln, Nebraska Children's Zoo, and then Twix, Rolo, and a couple of our other lemurs, Sprite, and Snickers all came from Waco, Texas. So lemurs don't get brought in from the wild, really. They've been in zoos and aquariums for long enough that now we have a really healthy population. They're all born in zoos. Their parents were born in zoos. Their grandparents were born in zoos. So these guys do very well here. They absolutely love the fact that they get fed every day. Like, twins are common in zoos and aquariums because resources are good, and when resources are good and they don't ever wonder about where their next meal is coming from, twins can be really common in this species. So it is really important to know that these guys didn't come from the wild. They would have no idea how to cope out in the wild. These guys are very spoiled.
I just got a note that Chelsea Feast is watching. Chelsea used to work this exhibit, so Chelsea is very familiar with these lemurs. Hello, Chelsea. Thank you for joining us. If I can get a quick shout out from everybody who's watching, just tell me where you're from. I'd love to know what kind of global reach, if it's global, we've got for this video. We've had some people watching from all over the world on these previous streams, from the Marshall Islands, from Iceland, New Zealand, so let us know where you're watching from. And if you have questions, continue to type them in the comments. I'm working my way down. It's just taking a while. Amy Lane would like to know, why are their tails striped?
Why are their tails striped? There's actually not a lot of different theories on this. No one really knows for sure. A couple of theories are that these guys are found in cave-like habitats like this, so striated caves. So they think it could be a camouflage thing. And then when they're walking around through scrubby brush, that tail pattern does kind of break up. And similar to the zebra stripes, how that breaks up the pattern for predators to see, those stripes kind of do that as well. It's also thought that each ring-tailed lemur has a unique stripe pattern that could be unique to them, that helps their group mates identify each other. So that could be another reason for it. It's hard to know for sure, but most of it's probably for camouflage reasons.
All right. Kelly Berg asked on behalf of Riley, age 10. Again, how long are their tails? We covered that, but
2 to 3 feet-ish.
All right. Let's see. Fort Allegro would like to know, and probably a lot of people would like to know, are their tails soft?
Are their tails soft? So they do have soft fur. It can feel similar to like your pet cat's fur a little bit, but it is really dense, and you have to remember they never bathe, so it's probably, even though they clean themselves, it's probably not quite what you would want to touch, and they really don't like being touched. If I were to reach up and try to pet one of them right now, they would run away, sadly. I know they look cute and fluffy, but they definitely don't like to be petted.
Megan Garowitz has, it's not really a question, more of a suggestion, that she would love to hear the keeper's impressions of some vocalizations.
Oh no. Oh, Megan, why you gotta do me like that? One of my favorite ones that I do for them all the time is kind of like just a little contact call, and they kind of sound like they're mewing almost, these guys. So it sounds like, ah, like that.
That's a pretty good impression. I've heard them do that.
That's my favorite one. I talk to them with that sometimes, so.
But we can probably segue from that into talking about the fact that ringtails, of the two species we've got, red ruffs and ringtails are more chatty.
Yeah, so these guys have a lot of different volumes, a lot of different calls. They're easy to kind of pick some of those different ones out. As I mentioned earlier, that one I kind of demonstrated is a contact call. They also have aerial calls. They have calls where when the red ruffs get screaming, these guys call to them. That looks almost like a howl and sounds kind of closer to howling. Their ground alarm call is absolutely deafening and really loud. But for the most part, these guys can be quite chill. They have some grunts, some softer mew-like sounds, so they have a wide variety for them. And they are easier to kind of hear most of the time, whereas the red ruffs, if they're gonna talk, it's gonna be loud, but you don't always want that because it's very loud.
All right. Allie Howard says, my kids love watching your live feeds. Thank you so much for all you do. We are happy to be a resource to those of you who are at home. We obviously can't have people in the aquarium right now. We are closed at the moment until further notice, but we like being able to show you that the animal care is still happening. These animals are still being looked after, and we want you to feel connected with them. The people like Maggie who are still here, still doing their job. Todd's still doing his job, making the footage. So a lot of us are still here doing our jobs. In fact, we've set up an emergency fund. We don't have any money coming in at the moment, but if you go to tnaqua.org and go to the donate tab, we do have a fund set up if you feel compelled or think that would be a good idea to support us during this time when we don't have any money coming in. We obviously would love for you to do that. And I'll probably repeat that again before this live stream is over, but we're very happy to be a resource to those of you who are at home and help you de-stress a little bit, feel a connection with the animals. Obviously, we feel de-stressed probably working with these animals too. So happy to share that with you.
A big part of why we do what we do is so that we can share these guys with you. So it's very important for us to continue to do that at this time.
Oh, so Neil Miller would like to know, what is your favorite story of working with lemurs? And this may take you a second. You probably have a lot of them.
It might be. There's so many. I think maybe watching Sam.
This is Sam.
During an exhibit, and then during a program that we do, and then she continued through the program, through the whole thing. So that was a really good one. You have to kind of learn not to stand under them. I have been peed on. It is a occupational hazard of our job.
I've had a tripod pooped on.
Yeah, but some of our favorite things are just when we get to bring them in. I gave them whole tomatoes last summer, like the little cherry tomatoes, and watching them bite into those and seeing them squirt and then seeing their reaction faces as they panicked about that was probably one of my favorite memories with them. That's hard going on the fly. There's so many.
These guys look like they're about to just nap.
It's so hot in here today. And we talked about earlier, we wish we could do something that would cool them down, but they're so prissy about water. Like, we thought about bringing snow or ice cubes in, but they wouldn't touch it anyway. So, but it is really warm in here today, so they're kind of like us. We don't feel like moving around too much when it's hot outside, and they're kind of the same way.
Speaking of, Natalie Cream would like to know, what do they drink?
They actually in the wild don't drink a ton of water, so we do have water for them that they can drink anytime they like here, but they get most of their water from food. So especially from us, they get fresh, crisp, cold romaine 2 to 3 times a day here. So they get most of their water from that romaine lettuce. But they do drink water occasionally. But their fruits and veggies all contain water, so in the wild, that's kind of where they get most of their water. Because it is kind of scarce to find water sometimes in the southern parts of Madagascar when it can be really dry and dusty. So they kind of learn to rely on either drinking from trees where it gathers in the crooks of trees or just getting it from their food.
Well, and we've mentioned that we are in the spiny forest part of Lemur Forest here at the aquarium, and that's a very specific habitat to that part of Madagascar.
It is. I mean, it has these big, it's known for these big like baobab trees that you see. This is a fake tree, but a lot of our other vegetation here, there is a real baobab tree above our door over there, which is pretty impressive. Our horticulture staff has worked really hard on getting all of these native Madagascar plants to thrive here, and it's really impressive. We have all those examples of spiny trees behind our exhibit there too, which lemurs are known for being able to climb on impressively because they have extra thick finger and toe pads, so they climb on those trees even though those trees evolved spines to try and stop that from happening.
All right, so we're getting a couple of repeat questions. What is their social structure like? Mariah Russell would like to know.
Social structure for these guys can be really complicated. So we only have 5 boys over here. That makes it a little easier for us. But if we were to have a female, it would throw all of this off. So currently, right now, it's pretty clear. Gil and Skip are definitely the top 2. Between them, they kind of are so close because they're twins. They don't really fight much with each other. But we think Gil is number 1. And then it goes all the way down to Twix being number 5. So they definitely have a hierarchy there. But if we were to throw a female in here, she'd probably come in here and just put them all in their place real quick, and then she'd be number 1. So for example, when we let Josephine and Avior over here to hang out with them, it's really clear that Josephine is in charge, and these guys all kind of just are like, okay, we get out of the way.
All right, so Emily Landry Hardy is asking on behalf of 5-year-old Jolie, what is the little green cage hanging down from the tree right behind you?
This is something we do for enrichment. We don't use it every day, but every few days or so we put all of their lettuce in here, and then they kind of have to use their fingers a little bit more to get the lettuce out. So it takes them a lot longer to eat. It slows them down so they don't just inhale all of their lettuce right away, and it makes them use their fingers a little bit more because they do have some pretty good dexterity since they're primates.
Amy Nix Lane would like to know, are lemurs related to raccoons?
Lemurs are not related to raccoons. They are primates, so they're more related to monkeys and apes and humans than raccoons.
All right. Natalie Crane would like to know, do they like to be held?
They do not like to be held. Again, as I said earlier, their fur is soft, so they look cute and cuddly, but they are very much wild animals. There is no such thing as domesticating a lemur. Domestication of dogs and things took hundreds of thousands of years to get that to be from a wolf to a dog. Lemurs are not domestic animals. Lemurs are wild animals. So while they're chill with us being in here, you've noticed the food is gone. They've decided to stop caring. They're not near me. They're not begging me for anything. They know I don't have it. If I were to reach up and touch their tail, they would run away and be really scared. They wouldn't trust me for a while, so they do not like to be held.
Elisa Levenway would like to know, on behalf of Zoya, age 8, why lemurs have stripes on the back of their tail. And you've kind of already talked about that, but just if you can...
Yeah, the striped tail of the ring-tailed lemur is iconic. They are the only species of lemur to have that striped tail. That's what makes them look so unique. We're probably used to seeing them a lot in zoos and aquariums. They're pretty represented, but in Madagascar, they're actually very unique and very rare. But those tails, they think the striation kind of helps with camouflage, similar to like a zebra stripe. It just breaks up the pattern, so any predator looking for them wouldn't see it. So it can kind of blend into their surroundings. They also think that it can help group mates identify each other based on tail pattern.
I'm just now getting down to the part of the comments where we've got the shout outs from people who are watching from different places. Looks like we've got Smoky Mountains, Middle Tennessee, Huntsville, Alabama, Pennsylvania, Sewanee, Tennessee, Alabama, just in general, Chicago, Nashville. People are watching from all over the place, so that's great.
Well, welcome to our aquarium.
All right, have we talked about species survival plans?
We haven't talked about the species survival plan, but that is something that's really cool. Most people at home probably don't realize just how much zoos and aquariums do for wild animals. And one of the ways we do that in our institutions is we have what's called the Species Survival Plan, the SSP. So that is an overarching entity so everyone who keeps ring-tailed lemurs, we all keep in contact with each other through the SSP. And the SSP makes recommendations for breeding, which animals should go where, what would be best for that. So we do our very best to make sure that these guys have healthy genetics, that lemurs who shouldn't be having babies shouldn't have babies, and that lemurs who are genetically valuable are hopefully having offspring. And that's all managed by the Species Survival Plan. So that keeps our population healthy for up to 100 years, which can be really, really important.
Looks like we've got some longtime aquarium members watching too. Thank you so much for supporting us for as long as you have and for joining us today. Albine Bennett would like to know, are they friendly?
Are they friendly? So we actually, these guys, you notice we're in the exhibit with them. You see them, like my hands are near them and they're okay. But I still wouldn't put my hands near their face. They have very sharp teeth. While they're munching, you might be able to get a good look at those really sharp canine teeth. And we do have 2 ring-tailed lemurs that are a little bit more aggressive. So those are 2 guys that we're not comfortable going in with because they're clearly not comfortable with us in their space. So just out of respect for them and our own safety, we don't go in with them. So they're kind of not not the most trusting of humans, and that's okay. So they've told us that's how they are most comfortable, so we've decided to respect that. So it really just depends on the personalities of the lemurs.
All right, and again, for those of you who are watching who are wondering why they're eating branches, those are forsythia branches, so this is kind of a treat for them. All right, so looking down at more questions here. Thank you for doing this. The kids love it, Janice Fainstock says, or Fawnstock. Again, apologies for messing up anybody's name, but thank you for watching. I'm glad the kids are enjoying it. Lynette Linton says that she hopes that we keep this going even after things get back to normal. I think we would all like to do that. We'd love to give you a live view of our animals. So I think we'll probably try and plan and do more of these in the future, even once things have settled down a little bit. Olivia and Eleanor, Heather Alexander asks on behalf of Olivia and Eleanor what their sleeping patterns are. How and where do they sleep, and what would their sleep patterns be like in the wild?
That is a really good question, and it does vary across lemur species, but these guys are pretty, I guess crepuscular would be the word, where they're kind of active throughout the day and night, so they can be active at night sometimes when it's a little cooler. This species, not as much as some others, but they can be active off and on. They do sleep a good majority of their day, and when they sleep, they do a really fun behavior called lemur balling. So they all kind of snuggle up together. It's a very big, important group dynamic for them to cuddle together, and they'll wrap, one lemur's tail will wrap around another lemur, and they snuggle up close, and it's really, really cute. And they can nap high on the branches or in a cave or on the ground. These guys are a pretty terrestrial species of lemurs, which is also unique to these guys. They like to spend a lot of time on the ground.
And so again, if you're looking for science vocabulary, we just heard terrestrial. So our red ruffs would not be terrestrial. They are...
No, they are more arboreal. So that means they spend a majority of their time up in trees. So while these guys like to spend a lot of their time on the ground and can be seen in the wild hanging out on the ground, you wouldn't see a red ruff just hanging on the ground. Like, they are going to spend most of their time way up in the tree branches of the rainforest.
All right, Lori Sly asks on behalf of 8-year-old Abby, do they fight over things? Are they friendly?
They do fight over things. So they are, again, wild animals, and they do have a hierarchy. So while they look cute and cuddly to each other, they are siblings, some of them as well, but they do like to push each other around for food, for enrichment, things they really like. Or sometimes if one lemur is getting groomed, and say Jill here, who's right up front and center, if he decided he wanted to get groomed, then he would displace the lower lemur to do such a thing. And they can pull each other's fur. They do have those sharp teeth. They don't use them unless they're really, really fighting. But they do pull each other's fur quite a bit. And they also do a behavior called stink biting. So stink biting sounds really silly, but it is really interesting. They like to bring those long striped tails up through the scent glands that we showed earlier on their wrist, and then they kind of load as much of their own scent onto their own tail as possible, and then they'll kind of face off with each other and just keep waving those tails over their heads, which is pretty funny to watch, but it is a pretty serious behavior for them, because the stinkiest lemur kind of can win those stink fights and kind of move up in the group or earn some territory there.
Sorry about the camera issues there. That was my stabilizer falling apart, so apologies for that. Albine Bennett asked, how do they sleep? We've already talked about that.
Yep.
And if it seems like I'm skipping questions, I apologize. There are so many coming in that we've already covered a few of these, so I don't want to ask too many questions too many times. So Elizabeth Levinway would also like to know, again, on behalf of Zoya, how do you know what is the right habitat for them?
How do you know what the right habitat is? That's a good question, but you kind of have to look at their natural history. So that is a term we use a lot, natural history. So where are they found naturally in the wild? So in Madagascar, where you see ringtail lemurs, it looks a lot like this, maybe a lot dustier because it's dirt roads. And normally we do have a substrate in here, but we have removed that while we're closed so that we can replace it because it needed replaced. So we looked at where you can find ringtail lemurs naturally, and we did our very best to recreate that here for them so that you guys could see in a natural place where lemurs would be found and kind of put that together. And then also just to kind of showcase these guys and maybe get a better idea of why they look the way they do or how they would maneuver their exhibits in the wild. And it sounds like we got our red ruffs calling in the back.
It's gonna get louder.
Yep. And louder. So that sound that you're hearing now is the ringtail lemurs responding. So for this one, they kind of throw their heads back and return that call.
Maggie, do you have any idea what might have set the red ruffs off?
The red ruffs, it can be anything. They hate the sound of our maintenance men's voices over the radio. So any of our maintenance guys, when they call on the radio, that can set our red ruffs off. Sometimes helicopters or an eagle or a hawk flying over can set them off. Sometimes the way a fish moves in front of their exhibit. You really don't know what sets our red ruffs off, especially aviors. Sometimes he just seems to just scream out of nowhere sometimes, which I think sometimes we can all relate to.
All right. So Heather Setzer would like to know, what kind of degree do you need to work with these animals?
Very good question. So I actually have a 4-year biology degree from Ball State University. I specialized in zoology. So I did go to school for this, and I worked really hard for this. I did internships that were unpaid. I've done part-time seasonal work at other zoos to try and get in here. But I definitely recommend starting volunteering if this is something you're interested in, and getting that biology or zoology degree so that you can get started in this field. It's definitely a very rewarding field.
Albine Bennett would like to know, do the lemurs like it cold or hot?
They prefer it warm, so our office is kind of in our holding area for these guys, and unfortunately for me, who likes it cooler, we do try to keep it above 72 degrees, and most of the time it's 74, and so it ranges 74 to 80 with pretty high humidity, and that's pretty where they like it. They're happiest there, but as you can tell today, even they're a little like from how hot it is in here, so they don't mind heat, but when it's really hot, they are pretty fluffy, so they kind of like to be like,
So Henry, age 4, my son, would like to know if you can buy a toy lemur in the gift shop.
You can buy a toy lemur in the gift shop, and they have many different of our ringtails, and you can even buy a red ruff lemur in our gift shop as well.
And many of the items you can buy in our gift shop actually help to support conservation efforts for our lemurs.
They do. It's really important. And then one day a year, we also sell lemur paintings in our gift shop for World Lemur Day. We like to do that as an extra fundraiser. We make about 20 paintings with these guys so that they can be sold in our gift shop as well to raise extra funds for their wild cousins.
All right. Marianne Reddy would like to know, do different species of lemurs hang out with each other comfortably? So can they coexist?
They can coexist. So our two species here, the red ruff lemurs and our ringtail lemurs, would never cross paths in the wild. Their habitats are too far away. But however, they do fairly well together. So we never leave them together overnight just in case a fight were to happen or something. But we've started where we open the door between our two exhibits during the days, most days now, and actually let them all hang out together. And that goes really well. Like, they kind of just avoid each other. They don't snuggle up or lemur ball together interspecies for the most part. But they do tolerate each other and can coexist very well. And that's actually very enriching for these guys to get to spend time with other lemur species. It's one of the most enriching things we can do for these guys is allow them to see other animals like their other lemur species and spend time in that kind of habitat.
And we should point out that normally when we actually have the ground material that's in this exhibit, we normally have radiated tortoises in here. So they are always around other animals.
Right. We do have a really cute herd of 4 radiated tortoises that normally live on the ground down here. And because the radiated tortoises are down here most of the time, these guys kind of avoid the ground at all costs. Because the tortoises look like big moving rocks to our lemurs, and they've never quite gotten used to that. That's still pretty nerve-wracking to them for the most part. So they do avoid them at all costs, but they are used to seeing other animals down here. And they are known to steal the food from the tortoises as well, who are a little bit slower.
All right, Patrick Harris would like to know, are lemurs predatory? So do they prey on other animals?
So these guys are mostly going to eat vegetation. They are going to eat mostly leaves, fruits, flowers, things like that, some nectar. But when times are tough, they are known to eat small birds, chameleon species, locusts, if they really need it. Like, we can give our guys here, we do keep mealworms on hand for a lot of our other animals. So when we offer it to these guys, they're like, why would we eat that when we have all the lettuce we could eat? But in the wild, when other vegetation is scarce, they do turn to those small chameleon and bird species when they need to.
Okay, Casey Lee Walsh. Again, apologies for butchering names if I did. How many lemurs are there in the world? I don't know if that means specific species or individual count.
If it's individual count, how many lemurs in the world, I do not know. I can tell you that there are almost 600, if not over 600 now, ringtail lemurs in U.S. zoos and aquariums that are accredited by AZA, so that's really exciting. That's a very healthy population, and it depends on the species. So some other species, like the rare blue-eyed black lemur, is not as well represented in U.S. zoos and aquariums, and they're a little more rare to see, but they're really fantastic as well, and they're really critically endangered in the wild also. So it's hard to know exactly how many are left, but it's definitely very rare out in the wild.
We've got, again, a couple of repeat questions asking if lemurs are part of the monkey family, and we've covered they are not.
They are not monkeys, but they are primates. They are prosimians.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. Where are the turtles that normally are with them?
That's a good question. So while the substrate is gone, they're actually living in our office. So we have set up special tubs for them with lots of mulch, so they like to scratch their shells on the mulch. And they're kind of hanging out in there, and then when we get a chance, we do take them out and let them roam the hallway a little bit so they have some room to stretch their legs. But they'll be back out here before too long.
Okay. Jen Mitchell would like to know, has the lemur's behavior been any different since we've been closed to visitors?
So these guys know. These guys they don't care if there's big crowds of people coming through. They kind of act the same regardless. Our red ruff lemurs, I think, have kind of liked the peace and quiet. That might just become from Josephine's age. She is 19, so she's a little older and a little more set in her ways, and she prefers the quiet, and she's really enjoying the quiet. But I think after a while, they've all been kind of like, where are the people? Like, it is really enriching for them to see different groups of people come through as well, so they're definitely feeling that absence too, and we're trying really hard to enrich them extra so that they don't get like too set in the ways of the quiet.
Heather Setzer would like to know, if you do volunteer at the aquarium, what are the kinds of things you can do in the course of being a volunteer?
That's a good question. So one of the ones that we can't have you directly volunteer with lemurs. Lemurs are a primate species, so we do have to be aware of zoonotic diseases, which is a big fancy science word that just says diseases that can be passed from lemurs to humans or from humans to lemurs. So that is meant especially for us people who have been tested for certain things, so that we can work with these guys. But you can work with our horticulture staff, and our horticulture staff comes in and they water all the plants, and they actually help us grow plants for our lemurs to eat. So out at our greenhouse, our horticulturists are growing tamarind trees and banana plants so that we can feed these guys browse even throughout the winter months, which is really, really special and really important. So if you'd like to come and you get to water up here in the cove, and then you can see the lemurs usually before anyone else gets here for the day when it's nice and quiet, that's a really fun one. You can also volunteer with our penguins, like helping prep seafood for penguins, and I'm sure there's lots of other opportunities as well.
All right, Neil Miller would like to know, how many species of lemurs are there, and if you could work with any that you don't currently work with, which species would that be?
It's a very good question. So there are over 100 different species. There's lots of different genus even. I would really love to work with Shafak lemur at some times, which many of you might know as Zaboomafoo. So I grew up with Zaboomafoo anyway on PBS. He was a Shafak lemur. They're pretty cool, but they're very specialized. They're one of the larger species of lemurs as well. Or blue-eyed blacks, just because they are the only non-human blue-eyed primate, which is a really rare thing as well. So that's pretty cool. So those two species I think would be on my really want-to list, but might not happen.
Casey Lee Walsh would like to know, are there any extinct lemurs?
There actually are. There are the giant lemurs that used to roam Madagascar that are extinct, that paleontologists have found remains of giant lemurs that used to roam around Madagascar, so that's pretty cool. I recommend looking into that story because they used to be very large, like the size of gorillas or something, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly.
All right. Let's see. Jeff Thacker would like to know, are the lemurs able to interact with visitors?
Not really. So if you come here and you see them, like, they're probably going to ignore you for the most part. Unless you have on something really shiny or I don't know. But for the most part, these guys will ignore most of you. They might notice you and look at the colors you're wearing and things like that, but they're going to ignore you for the most part. These guys, they're used to visitors coming and looking at them, so they're really not too interested in it.
We've had a couple of questions about how you tell the boys from the girls. So,
well, similar to most other primate species, there are some species of lemurs that exhibit sexual dimorphism, which is really unique, which just means that they have maybe different colors of fur. So for blue-eyed black lemurs, for example, the black lemur, they have black fur, then they are the males. If they have golden fur, they are females. But for these guys, there would be no way just by looking at a face to tell if it was a male or a female. Same with our red rust. It's all about how you tell boys from girls in the primate world.
all right. Let's see. A lot of people saying that we're awesome, so
you guys are awesome too.
Glad to be awesome for you. And again, I'll go ahead and say one more time that a lot of us are still here working at the aquarium. We do have an emergency fund set up. If you'd like to, emergency operations fund set up on our website if you would like to contribute, because we have no money coming in at the moment, and these animals still are getting the kind of world-class care they always get. So if you would like to contribute to a fund that helps us weather the storm, so to speak, you can do so by going to tnaqua.org and then clicking on the donate tab. Candy Gore would like to know, how do they know when bad weather is going on?
So they kind of do alarm calls sometimes if there's bad thunderstorms or fireworks to set them off, but usually they're just like us. If it's a rainy, gloomy day out, they're napping in their nice warm cave. So that cave does have a heated element in it so that it stays nice and warm for them, and they like to snuggle up in there. Luckily, these guys don't actually have to ever deal with rain, but there are some spots in here where the ceiling does leak a little bit and they get a little bit of rain, but they really don't care too much about the weather here, because as long as they're not getting rained on, they're happy.
Well, and they can look out the window, and obviously if you look up, we are under the glass peaks here at the aquarium. So these are the iconic glass ceilings that you probably know from looking at any picture of the outside of our buildings. We have glass peaks on both buildings, and this is what we call a living forest gallery, which means that it has an abundance of natural light, and those windows do obviously let the lemurs see outside. So if there's a storm going on, they can look out just like anybody else.
Absolutely know it. So, and it is a lot of natural light in here. So that's why I said when it's gloomy outside, it's gloomy in here. So sometimes when it's really dark outside for a storm, it's pretty hard to see in here sometimes even because of that. So they get a natural light cycle thanks to these glass peaks. Like when the sun rises is kind of when they wake up. When the sun sets is when they're getting ready to go to bed, because they are going through that natural cycle like we are with outside.
Well, it looks like we've gotten to the end of our comments. Thank you all so much for joining us today, for coming up with these great questions, these comments, these shout outs from all over the world. We certainly appreciate it. We hope that you will continue to join us for these live streams. We're trying to do them once a day while we are closed, and as we talked about earlier, we'll probably try and continue to do them even once things are back to normal. So do check our Facebook page every day at about 11 o'clock. We will usually put up some sort of post letting you know what we'll be talking about at 1 o'clock Eastern time, which is when these lives are going to be going out. And again, thank you very much to Maggie for taking so much time to tell us everything there is to know about prosimians and lemurs and Madagascar and endemism. Endemism was the word I just said there. It came out weird. And just in general, being a good sport in this hot exhibit for 50 minutes.
Yes, please excuse the sweatiness, but it has been worth it just to share a little bit about lemurs and why I think they're so great and why I do what I do and why I'm coming here even in this time when maybe a lot of other people are working from home. I cannot work from home. I have to be here because I need to make sure these guys are taken care of.
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to go ahead and end the live stream. So thank you all very much for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow.